How about now? So I will be the moderator for this evening. I will call your name if you're registered to speak, and you'll come forward, you'll use the podium. Right now I'll go through the speaking rules. These were published, but I'll just reiterate. Speakers may register to speak by filling out a registration sheet provided by the county, or by requesting to be recognized at the public meeting by providing a first and last name. The public hearing moderator will recognize each speaker in turn, at which time the speaker will step to the podium, state and spell the speaker's first and last name. This will permit the court reporter to prepare an accurate transcript. Only one person may speak at a time, so the court reporter can transcribe what has been said. Each speaker is allowed to speak one time per item on the agenda. The public speaker moderator will moderate each time limit period for each speaker. Each speaker has been given the following time limit. Opening comments by the applicant, 5 minutes. Any licensed attorney representing collectively, individually, or as a spokesperson for a group of 5 or less persons is allowed 5 minutes. Any attorney representing 6 to 25 people, 10 minutes. And those attorneys representing 26 or more, 15 minutes. And I will be keeping time up here, you can all witness. And closing comments by the applicant is 5 minutes. Each speaker must adhere to the appropriate time limit. Any speaker exceeding the time limit will be directed to stop speaking. Speakers directed to stop speaking will do so immediately, and time limits will be enforced by the moderator. All comments shall be in keeping with proper and courteous conduct. Each speaker shall direct comments to the county board generally and shall not direct comments to any individual or any audience member. The public hearing moderator shall take whatever action is necessary to ensure that these rules are enforced and the hearing proceeds in an orderly fashion, including enforcing the time limits. Neither the WECS ordinance or state statute provide any other particular time period for this public hearing. The public hearing does not have to last until every person present has an opportunity to be heard. Time limits will be strictly enforced by the moderator so that as many persons as possible will have the opportunity to speak. I do want to reiterate that the purpose of this hearing is to allow everyone to have their voice be heard. Please keep your comments respectful, and the county board will review all the comments from the court reporter and formulate questions, and the applicant will have an opportunity to address at the meeting on Monday.
The court reporter had a special request. If you have a paper that you're reading from or using for notes, she would like to review that to make sure that if there's any spelling or any of those type of items that she has that correctly. And those will be returned at the end of the hearing to people, or? So if you would do that after you speak, if you could just lay it down in front of the court reporter, if you have a piece of paper, she would appreciate that. Thank you.
At this time, we'll call the applicant for their 5 minutes.
Hello, hello. There we go. Okay, how's this? Okay, good evening. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to introduce EDP Renewables and the Broadlands Wind Farm, which is commonly referred to as the Harvest Ridge Wind Farm. My name is Amy Kurt, and I'm a project manager with EDP Renewables. We're one of the largest owners and operators of wind farms in Illinois, with more than 500 wind turbines operating today at 5 wind farms. We also successfully permitted a new wind farm up in McLean County, last year, and it started construction earlier this year. Across North America, EDP Renewables owns and operates 48 wind farms and 5 solar projects with more than 600 employees, several of whom are here with us today. We've also been joined by some of our local primary contractors who are excited to be leading the construction for the Harvest Ridge Wind Farm and are eager to start work as soon as permitted to do so. I'm pleased to provide an overview today of the Wind Energy Conversion Systems, or WECS, permit approval application for the Harvest Ridge Wind Farm. Our application, which as you can see, it's more than 1,000 pages long, so I will not be detailing it as I am limited to 3 minutes and 39 seconds, but I will provide a overview for you. The Harvest Ridge Wind Farm will consist of 48 wind turbines and will have a total installed capacity of approximately 200 megawatts. Upon completion, the wind farm will generate enough power for more than 70,000 average Illinois homes. The project is located on private property in Newman and Murdoch Townships, and approximately 100 landowners have signed up to participate with more than 10,000 acres of land to participate in the project. However, the final design will actually only require about 95 acres, less than 95 acres, to be removed from agricultural production. We've entered into long-term power purchase agreements with several different off-takers, including Walmart, as well as a rural electric cooperative, which provides power to the local distribution utility in southeastern Douglas County. In total, the wind farm is a more than $300 million investment in Douglas County. We've already spent more than $60 million to get us to the point where we are here today, this evening. The project will provide substantial economic benefits to Douglas County and the surrounding communities, including new permanent jobs, increased landowner income and local spending, as well as increased tax revenue, not to mention the obvious is the clean energy that it will produce for decades to come. Specifically, the project will generate about $2 million in property and contribute more than $50 million over the first 30 years of operation. About half of those property taxes go to support the local schools. The Shiloh School District is the biggest winner, but Heritage, Villa Grove, and the Parkland Community College will also see substantial benefits. The remaining of the tax dollars go to the local townships, road districts, fire districts, libraries, and other public services. The project will support more than 250 jobs during its construction and 8 to 10 permanent jobs for the life of the project. The Douglas County WECS ordinance provides detailed regulations on how to site a wind farm in Douglas County and how to conform to the building code requirements of the county. We have used this detailed ordinance as the blueprint for the development of the Harvest Ridge Wind Farm. We have been working for several years on the studies and land acquisition and other efforts to lead up to this point, but over the last 7 months, we've been working very closely to make sure that Stanley Consultants and the county committee have the necessary information they need to approve a building permit. And we've worked diligently to satisfy all of the requirements of the Douglas County WECS ordinance. Based on our company's experience across the country, this has been one of the most rigorous county permitting processes we've been through. I would like to conclude my comments by thanking the county board members and the staff that have put a ton of time and attention to the Harvest Ridge Wind Farm. I know this has not been easy, both personally and professionally, for many of us. I'm confident that the benefits that this project will bring to the county will make it all worth it. I look forward to answering any questions at the end of this hearing or as you see fit. Thank you so much. It's quite the ending there.
While we're working on technical issues, we'll call the first 3-minute speaker. Pardon me if I butcher your last name. Amy Walsh, W-A-L-C-H.
My name is Amy Walsh, A-M-Y-W-A-L-C-H, and I'm a Douglas County resident, more specifically a resident of Murdoch Township. For those of you who don't know me, I came to Douglas County following graduation from EIU, but I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. My extended family is mostly still there, but I knew by the time I was in high school that staying in Chicago wasn't the life I wanted. My point is that it was a deliberate decision on my part to move to the country. And after living within the city limits for several years, we chose to move out to the country, where we still reside some 20 years ago. If I'd wanted a 600-foot behemoth in my front yard, I'd have stayed in Chicago. They have skyscrapers there. To quote an interesting article I recently read, rural America produces almost all of our country's food, as well as raw materials like metals, cotton, and timber. Energy, including fossil fuels, but also alternatives like wind and solar, come mostly from rural areas as well. In other words, the material inputs of modern life flow out of rural communities and into cities. Now, this might be fine if the exchange is voluntary, but if rural people choose to sell their goods and services, receive a fair price, and have their freedom protected under the law. But city dwellers have a nasty habit of taking advantage of their country cousins. What Energy to Portugal did with House Bill 2988, removing townships' rights to properly zone and protect our land, did exactly that. So rather than wait for the judicial process to determine whether our rogue townships had the right to have some say in how close these nearly 600-foot behemoths could be set from our home, Energy to Portugal got a Democratic representative from the city of Chicago to introduce a bill under the guise of clarifying language to get their way. The sheer lack of representation we have in the state legislature made this an impossible battle for rural communities to win. So I addressed this to the county board. We counted on you at the county level to look out for your constituents, to look out for the health, safety, and protection of property values. You have failed us miserably. You have taken little to no effort in the last 11 months to become educated and informed about our concerns and the constituents had brought forward to you. Those of us living in the footprint of this industrial wind complex. The voters of 2 townships voted overwhelmingly to establish zoning, and both of those were passed unanimously when they were finished. Within rural communities, there's a tremendous sense of community, and I've seen it time and time again. When a farmer has an injury or an illness, everybody pitches in to get the job in, get their crops in, get the job done. Just last week, I saw evidence of that, an overwhelming generosity of the residents served by the Rural Grace Food Pantry during the recent post office food drive. We have each other's backs, so how about you county board members? Do you have our backs? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Porter?
Next. Good evening. My name is Rick Porter, and tonight I represent 8 landowners who are here to object to the wind energy conversion system application that's been filed in this case. On the grounds that application will destroy my client's use and enjoyment of their Douglas County homes and lands. I'm very sorry for the layout, guys. There's a PowerPoint we brought with us, and it's behind your head. I apologize for that. We weren't in charge of setting up the room. One thing that you need to understand, and what became clear at the meeting yesterday, was that there may be a misconception going on at the county board level that your involved in a ministerial function, that you're looking at just determining whether or not the turbine company has filled out the forms that are required, much like you're putting in a kitchen sink and checking the boxes for a building permit. That is not what you're doing. Your wind energy conversion system ordinance explicitly requires that the application demonstrate that it is safe and effective. You have a discretionary function. You have to listen to this hearing. This is supposed to be a public hearing where you are making a determination as to whether or not they've submitted a safe and effective application. Furthermore, your ordinance explicitly recognizes that there are severe collateral impacts in relation to wind turbine projects, so you have to pay attention to that. It isn't a matter of just looking like your Stanley Consultants has done and determining whether or not they filed some paperwork. You're supposed to read the paperwork and determine whether or not the noise study actually shows compliance with Pollution Control Board regulations, whether or not the avian study actually shows that there will not be endangered species. You can't just say, oh, they checked that box. You have to go deeper than that and make a determination. You also have to go, next slide please. You also have to consider that you have a duty. This is an application that affects people's land and property. When that happens, as a county board, you sit in an administrative function where you actually put on a hat like a judge. And you have to make a decision as to whether or not this application will impact other people's use and enjoyment of their properties. That's a constitutional requirement. And there's a case that tells you what factors you're supposed to be looking at. It's called LaSalle-Sinclair factors. And you'll see they're behind you. They are all revolve around whether or not the use that you're being asked to decide is appropriate affects other people's constitutional rights to property, the existing uses of nearby property, the extent of the impacts on property values, the extent of destruction of those property values, the weighing of the hardships on the people nearby versus the public good, if any, of the application. You have to weigh all of that. You can't just sit back and rely on some consultant that's told you, oh, they filled out the paperwork. You actually have to make a decision. So please move on. Next slide. Next slide, please. So one thing I do have to mention before I get rolling is this process is totally unfair. The wind farm statute in Illinois, 12020, requires there to be a public hearing. A public hearing in Illinois requires that lawyers like myself have an opportunity to cross-examine witnesses. The applicant has never testified. They gave a public statement, and your attorney and your board has said, I can't ask them any questions about the application. So that means that application has not been vetted by a judicial process, or a quasi-judicial process, an administrative process. Nobody's asked them any questions about that application that they've had to answer. And there are lots of problems with that application. Furthermore, limiting time of a lawyer to 10 minutes is ridiculous. Last closing I had in a citing hearing was 4 hours after 30 nights of hearings. Because these applications are huge. This application alone has 1,000 pages. I can't possibly bring you up to speed on all of those in 10 minutes. Next slide, please. One thing though, procedurally, the law is absolutely clear that you have no jurisdiction over this matter. There is a community nearby, Longview, which is an incorporated municipality. And it is within 1.5 miles of the turbines at issue in this case, 1.5 miles of the footprint. The municipal code and the county's code both provide only the municipality has authority over that 1.5 miles. You have none, and yet you have an application where they're asking you to approve turbines within that 1.5 miles. It's inappropriate, it's improper, you have no jurisdiction. Move on, please. You also have an application that doesn't identify the specific locations of the turbines, nor the specific models. It gives you alternative locations. There are actually 55 locations that they've selected for 48 turbines. We don't have any idea where they're actually going to go. And the result of that is you can't do adequate noise studies. They're required by your ordinance. You can't do adequate avian studies. You can't do environmental studies because you don't know where the turbine's going to be located, nor do you know what model they're going to be because they got 2 different models and they haven't told you which ones are going where. Next, please. So I am going to try to get through talking to you a little bit about noise. And it is a huge problem with turbines, and you cannot underestimate this. This is something that affects people 24/7, 365 days a year. Some people, even if you don't hear it, have a problem with it feeling in their chest. And there's a whole book called Wind Turbine Syndrome, and there's all kinds of cases and all kinds of studies now that show that there are impacts from low frequency noise. And what the theory is and what the belief is that what happens is the vestibular organs of your brain, your inner ear, are tricked into believing that you're in motion. And so people get startled awake throughout the night. There are people that abandon their homes. You're going to hear from some of them hopefully tonight because of this inability to sleep. So even though the noise is like an airplane nearby, don't believe this baloney about it's a refrigerator. That's silly. What the turbine companies will have you do is go stand under a turbine and say you don't hear it. Go 1,500 feet away. I guarantee you'll hear it. The noise comes out in a conical pattern. You're not going to hear it right underneath. You're going to hear it a long way away. And it comes through the roofs, by the way, louder than it does at ground level. Move on, please. So the problem with wind turbine noise, if you take a look over your shoulder, is it's not a constant pattern. It's not like your refrigerator. It's not like an airplane even going by. It's a thumping, it's a dripping noise, because every time that the blade passes by the tower, that causes a sound. And that's why this is particularly annoying. And there's been studies about the fact that wind turbine noise is more annoying than other types of noise. Move on, Michael. The World Health Organization has recently published 2018 guidelines that say if you have 40 decibels outside of your house, that means you've got 30 in your house, that will disturb your sleep. Your very noise study already shows exceedances of 32 homes over 40 decibels. They're already in violation of the World Health Organization by their own study, and that study, by the way, put in all kinds of parameters that reduced their outputs. They gave them lower decibel readings than actually should have been resulted from the study. Move on, Michael. Wind turbine syndrome. By the way, we have binders for all of you guys. There are publications in there that we ask that you read. You're going to get a copy of this PowerPoint. Move on, Michael. These are affidavits from doctors about the medical impacts: tinnitus, headache, fatigue, stress. Move on, Michael. I got to get down to, keep going. Keep going. Okay, keep going, Michael. One more. One more. One more. Here. In your application, there are noise arrays. I do need you to take a look. This is from your application. And those noise arrays show the 41 decibel limit around the turbines. And they draw a circle. If you look at where that circle goes to, it crosses over 100 non-participating properties. That means over 100 times my clients' properties and people that are not getting paid by this turbine company will have dangerous noise at their property. The text of the document didn't tell you that. It's in there. You have to go look and get to know what you're reading. We had an expert take a look at this application, and he came to some conclusions, which was that the application underestimated the decibels by no less than 4.5 decibels and as much as 12.5. So the reason they did that is there's a 3 decibel margin of error. They even recognized this in the application, but they didn't add the 3 decibels for the model. They also used an attenuation factor. They assumed the ground was soft, and that's a 0.5. They put it in the model, and all of a sudden it gives you lower numbers. They're supposed to use a 0. That's the accepted standard, because that is what it's like in the winter, hard ground. That's why they're underestimated their noise predictions, and you'll see in the documents that we provided from our expert that means that there are 80% of the homes will be in violation of the World Health Organization. If you guys had had a whole hearing, I would have brought Rick James, who did this study for us, and he would have testified for you. Because you didn't have a hearing, you instead got me yelling at you in 10 minutes. And it was inappropriate. We asked you to deny this application. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Okay, I would ask that. Are we done?
name is Arlie Dunn. Chairman Munson, board members of Douglas County, concerned citizens, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Arlie Dunn. I've been a resident of Newman since March 1957. I have seen many changes in our town, and not unlike other small towns in the area, most of those changes have not been good. Too many vacant and deteriorating business buildings and abandoned houses are a blight on our town. Local real estate values are stagnant or falling as the buildings and houses fall into disrepair. But today we have a great opportunity, as Harvest Ridge Wind Farms would supply a goodly amount, like tens of millions of dollars, to the whole of Douglas County. Not only Newman and Murdoch, but all of Douglas County will benefit in new tax revenue through higher tax base. Our local school systems will greatly benefit financially for many years to come. About 90 acres total, give or take a bit, I am told, will be needed for the 48 turbines and their access roads scheduled to be installed on the ridge. Ecologically, the turbines, once running, will provide electrical energy with zero emissions for many, many years. That in itself is a worthy venture. The tax revenue is an extra added benefit. Therefore, I urge this board of wise and deliberate counselors to support this endeavor of wind energy in Douglas County and to move onward to reach out and grasp the historic opportunities presented here before you today. And when you do, the wise and learned citizens of Douglas County will undoubtedly be totally and eternally grateful. Thank you for your kind attention and for your support in this venture.
Thank you. Attorney for the opposition.
Good evening. I'm Michael Estrella with Hinshaw and Culbertson, and I represent 7 landowners whose land is nearby or adjacent to the footprint of the project. I would encourage you to look at the exhibit binder, which will be submitted to you this evening. Following up on my partner Rick Porter's comments, the report of Rick James is what outlines the exceedances of the Illinois Pollution Control Board regulations that he talked about. Didn't have a chance to finish his comments given our time constraints, but Mr. James' report is in our binder. I would encourage you to look at it. I'd like to highlight a couple of additional important topics this evening, starting with decommissioning. This is a project that is expected to last 20, 30 years in this county. And at the end of that lifespan, you've got 600-foot towers, and something has to happen to those. And you have to put yourself into a comfort zone as a county in terms of being financially secure to make sure that the county doesn't foot the bill and that your residents don't foot the bill for, at a conservative estimate, $101,000 per turbine. If you look at the assurance that's been given you, the performance bond in particular that is a part of the application, it's wholly inadequate. And as the slide that is behind you indicates, you can look at the bond itself, and we've studied it over and over. And what it says in plain language is quite simply that the bond company has a choice if the turbine company walks away. They can pay the $101,000 per turbine to take down the turbines, or the other choice, which they're likely to choose, pay to each individual landowner $35,000. That doesn't solve the problem. The bond they've provided is wholly inadequate. I would encourage you to study it. I would encourage your state's attorney to study it. We believe it is wholly inadequate, does not provide adequate financial assurance for decommissioning this project. That is an important issue. Next, in terms of human health effects, you have an obligation under your own ordinance to determine that this project is safe for your residents. In addition to the noise issues, shadow flicker is a very real problem in these projects. And there is not a requirement in your WEX ordinance that the applicant do any sort of shadow flicker analysis. What I can tell you, my partner and I, Rick Porter, have been involved in these sorts of hearings all across the state of Illinois. These are the largest turbines we've come across, nearly 600 feet tall. This applicant has not done anything to indicate how much shadow flicker is going to be incurred by neighboring property owners, to indicate that they will do anything to mitigate those issues. And I believe you'll hear tonight that shadow flicker is as much a health concern for neighboring landowners as noise. The applicant wasn't required to do anything under your WEX ordinance, but you have an obligation to make sure that what they're going to put up in your county is safe. And what I'm here to tell you tonight is shadow flicker is real. It causes very real health problems, and it's something that you ought to be concerned about. I'd next like to touch on aerial application. Now, your ordinance does require some bit of due diligence, and I'll use that term loosely with respect to aerial application. What it says is when proposed siting infringes upon or prevents the non-participating adjacent property owner or his agent from participating in accepted agricultural aerial application practices, the applicants must negotiate in good faith with said landowners prior to final site approval. So before this board were to grant approval and any permits allowing them to construct. Now, they've represented to you that they've talked to some aerial applicators that work in this area. I can represent to you that at least one of those is owned by a participating landowner. So consider the objectivity of that source. What I can also tell you is I believe you'll hear tonight from some of the others who will be speaking that this project will infringe upon the ability to aerially apply herbicides and pesticides. And that's because the cost is going to be increased, perhaps by as much as $3 per acre. May not seem like a lot when you're talking about 2 or 3 acres, but everybody in this room knows that farmers in this county farm thousands of acres. It's real money. Does that infringe upon that farmer's ability to aerially apply herbicides and pesticides? You bet it does. And in that instance, this applicant, EDP, is required, under your ordinance, they're required, this is a must, to negotiate in good faith with those landowners and come to a resolution before final site approval. They have not done that. And there's nothing in their application, nothing that we've seen that's been submitted to you that indicates they've negotiated with a single farmer or landowner at all, much less in good faith. I'd like to turn now to property taxes. The applicant in their 5-minute statement this evening, opening statement, talked about property tax revenue and the tax benefits to be realized over the next 30 years. And there's no doubt there are some property tax revenues that will be provided pursuant to this project. But there are some things that the applicant did not talk about. Here are a couple of them. Number one, the Illinois statute, which provides the formula, if you will, for property tax revenue. It sundowns in 2021. I don't know what the Illinois legislature is going to do after that. There's no guarantee that that will be renewed. And you can't count on that being renewed. In addition to the decommissioning estimate being overstated, we believe that the applicant's property tax calculations and their estimated revenue for local taxing bodies is very likely overstated as well. As I said, the current law does allow for some tax revenue to be generated based on a formula dependent on kilowatt output less depreciation, which results in tax revenue decreasing over the life of the project. Now, something happened about 20 years ago up in Byron, Illinois. There's a nuclear power plant up there that many of you might be familiar with. And what ComEd did there is they argued that that nuclear power plant wasn't real property. The plant itself, they said, was personal property. You don't have any guarantee here from the applicant that they won't at some point make that same argument. That the turbines themselves that cost the most for them to put up are personal property rather than real property. What happened in Byron in 1996 is the taxpayers ended up having to pay back ComEd $27 million because the court found that in fact the Byron nuclear power plant was personal property. The ground underneath was real property, but the plant itself was not. There's nothing that prevents this applicant from making that same argument. And then what are you left to tax? What is your assessor left to tax other than a concrete slab? What might fix the problem is what's called a payment in lieu of tax pilot agreement, which you certainly could require as part of any conditions you impose as part of your consideration here. Require them to pay what they say they're going to pay, $50 million over 30 years. Put it in writing. Otherwise, you don't have any such guarantee. Relatedly, in terms of properties, is property value. Now, in many other counties where we've appeared and represented similar groups that are opposed to these projects, the applicants have been required to talk about property value. And there's a reason for that. The reason is because if you're a non-participating landowner who has a beautiful home that you've lived in for 20 years, and all of a sudden, next door to you are 7 or 8 behemoth, I think was the word used earlier, industrial wind turbines, 600 feet tall, common sense tells you that your property value is going to go down. It doesn't take an appraiser to tell you that. But we've hired appraisers in other counties that have done their own expert analysis and have said exactly that. And in the binder that will be submitted to you this evening, you'll see Mr. Kurt Keelish has done that analysis in Bureau County. He's done that analysis in Macon County. And what he's concluded is that the property value loss is up to 50% for residential landowners. They didn't do anything to even analyze that, to tell you, no, there won't be a property value issue. They didn't even touch that issue. Now, your WEX ordinance doesn't require it, but again, your ordinance requires you to make sure that this is safe and effective and efficient. Similar to the pilot agreement, we have submitted to you as part of the exhibit binder that's before you this evening, what we call a property value protection plan. And I encourage you and your state's attorney to look at it and determine whether it might be an appropriate condition to protect the property values of those people who are going to be most directly impacted by this project, the non-participating landowners. My partner and I wish we had more time to discuss these issues with you in more depth, to ask the applicant questions about all these issues. They're very important. I thank you for your time, and I hope that you consider everything we've had to say this evening.
Thank you. Next speaker is Jerry Walsh.
My name is Jerry Walsh. I live at 1300 North, 1950 East, Newman, Illinois. I'm a transplant for the past 30 years in Douglas County. Think about this. 3 60,000-pound baseball bats swinging in the wind over 200 foot long with a tip speed of over 100 miles an hour. Tied together 300 feet in the air, 1,000, 1,500 feet away from your home. Batter up. How are you going to protect me? My township is trying. A broken bat does happen. Look at the 4 lives lost. I guess their lights need to be brighter up so the man could see, or enough oil on the loose gravel for the young boy not to lose control. I received a letter from Energy of Portugal that they were going to contact me. That was 9 months ago. I have not had, the company has not once talked to me. I do not trust them. EDP has received $722 million in taxpayer subsidies. 25 years ago, a small group asked the state for a grant to help build a football concession stand. We did not get that grant. We raised $50,000 in small donations and built the building, even with a little help from the local unions. The building was worth $90,000 when we were done, and it's still standing today, generating money for our kids. I'm happy with the recent 1% sales tax for the schools. $450,000 for 1 year, just to Villa Grove. Thank you, local people, local businesses, and visitors. Look at what you're selling out to a big company for $60 million over 30 years. Look at the great big businesses that have left us in Douglas County: Recontech, coal mine, landfill, grain elevators, the railroad depot, Hamida, FutureGen, that went away. Fertilizer plant. I do not call this Harvest Ridge Farm. I call it inefficient transfer of energy, like our wasteful government. Do you have your gloves in your back pocket to clean up this mess? Keep it all local and keep the big wasteful government out. One more thing. Happy anniversary for your 50th anniversary, Giles and Cheryl Thomas. Free speech to my great neighbor.
Next speaker, please, Sherry Ellis.
My name is Sherry Ellis. I live in Villa Grove. I'm a strong supporter of the wind farm. I am a property owner, landowner in Murdoch Township, not getting a turbine. So I'm not benefiting that way, but I had lived in Indianapolis for 25 years. I moved away, moved back to take care of my mother about 4 or 5 years ago, and couldn't believe the way Villa Grove is pretty much any business, it's just died. And Newman, I mean, these towns are kind of like the old Dust Bowl. I mean, there's no vitality left in these places. So I went to Villa Grove School. I grew up just south of town. I graduated from Villa Grove. I graduated from Eastern twice and taught school in Shiloh. So I've been around the area. There's a lot of fear-mongering happening right now with an extremely vocal minority, and the great benefits of this project will bring to our communities getting lost in the noise. Frankly put, the wind farm is the only viable option around Newman, Villa Grove, and Shiloh to raise their tax bases. The wind farm will not only contribute $2 million in taxes the first full year of operation, it will contribute $50 million over the next 30 years. This will benefit all the residents, not just the wind turbine people, will benefit in these areas. There are no industries that want to come into those areas. There's nothing that wants to come in. Villa Grove has Paul Claire's, that's about it. Tuscola, they're thriving. You have a great manager over here. We'll never progress if we continually refuse to evolve. We need revitalization, and the wind farm's giving us that opportunity. Several school districts, of which I taught at Shiloh, a long time ago, but I taught at Shiloh. Several school districts have had to consolidate because there's not enough funding or attendance to keep them open. Teachers and programs are being lost because there's nobody, there's no money, there's no tax base. The millions in tax dollars will go to the schools, will increase the quality of education, which will attract additional teachers and staff, which will attract people to the community. People look for a good education system, come raise their kids in. The areas are great, but the schools are what are important. These people buy houses. The Harvest Ridge Wind Farm will also benefit this area through job creation. There are going to be 250 local people that will help build these. We want our town known as a viable area, not just cheap rent. Thank you.
Next speaker, Jim Allen, please.
Hi, I'm Jim Allen. I'm from Newman, Illinois. We at the Newman and Murdoch Townships have witnessed an appalling desecration of our local protection from big business and big government. When the people of a part of rural America can have their property, their physical, emotional, and psychological well-being threatened by outside power players, and local agencies are complicit in those threats, we are indeed turning our backs on the welfare of our own citizens. A few short years ago, I'd never thought that the governmental representatives of our county would side with a political power play run through the state that would specifically target two of Douglas County's townships. As downstate rural Illinois constantly battled the Chicago machine, I would never have imagined that our own people would side with that cohort in an enterprise that would forever remove our rights with such major implications for the removal of self-determination. We in rural Illinois need to closely examine the covetous nature of the green energy movement. If the political power brokers in this state can partner so quickly with the corporation they favor to take away the rights of townships, why would one not be concerned they'd also work to take away the power of the citizens of the county? I'm aware of the big money EDP has thrown into the mix with the proposed wind factory, and certainly big money talks. However, I feel that from the very start of this process, our local governing bodies were misled and misinformed of many of the ramifications that will result from the construction of the kinds of turbines that are targeting our county. And EDP has taken advantage of our lack of experience and naivete in dealing with those issues. The professional staff that EDP has at its command has continued to ramp up its pressure on our county's decision makers and have encouraged a sense of urgency in order to keep up the inconvenient facts from coming out. Unlike some others, I think the county board entered this agreement with the best of intentions. And knowing some of those members personally, I further believe that they had the welfare of the county as their priority. However, I feel that they were, to a significant degree, manipulated by the EDP staff. And the board gave that entity far more consideration of EDP's arguments favoring the wind factor than it did for the arguments of those who are opposed. An opposition armed with an ever-increasing body of knowledge that evidences this wind project, as designed, is a detriment to the greater community. I think it's worth noting that the people testifying against the wind factor here today, without exception, are doing so of their own free will and out of motivation for preserving what they hold dear to them and to their families. Unlike many of those in favor of the turbines, none of these in opposition signed any agreement that would deny their right to free speech. What does it reflect on a corporation that uses signed agreements requiring its supporters to relinquish their individual freedom of speech? I understand that the wind company has garnered a significant number of statements in support of the position. How many of those people still live within a mile of these huge structures? Compare the percentage of these people with the percentage of people opposed who will live in physical proximity to the turbines. Thank you.
Thank you. Adelaide, please.
Hello, I'm Adelaide from Arthur Atwood area, Douglas County, and I see it, the Harvest Ridge, in a different light. I see it as a gift, and as the name Harvest Ridge so aptly describes it, it is a harvest. Any harvest is a gift. And there's a phrase that was commonly used when I was growing up, and some of you may recall it, which says, "Don't look a gift horse in the mouth." God created the ridge, and He created the wind. EDP Renewables discovered, and with knowledge and expertise in technology and electronics, to use the wind to rotate the blades of the rotor to generate electricity. The wind is the same before we use it as it is after we use it. And like the huge amount of coal we burn to generate electrical power, and I see so many long trains over a mile long with nothing but coal cars on the Union Pacific Railroad, which is just out the door.
because coal has to be replenished. Not so with the wind. We've had the wind from the beginning of time. So to use that power that doesn't need to be replenished is awesome. So the harvest is come. It's here. We need to bring it in. And surely we have the dignity and the stewardship to bring in this harvest of such great magnitude. If not, we're like a person who plants tomato seeds and they grow up and vine after vine and you got dozens of tomatoes and now you got a tomato factory. And as they ripen, you have a harvest. Now you have a choice. Bring in the harvest or let it rot. And if you do that, you could be likened to a person as 2 sandwiches shy of a picnic. I use phrases in my life because they're short and to the point. And I leave this phrase with you, excuse me. And it's also a clincher. And to put us over the top, to those who are undecided, and to all to help you and to bless you as it has me, lo, these many years. Now here's a phrase. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. Thank you, boy.
Next speaker, please, David Albin.
I hope I get an extra minute. I'm going to spell my name. D-A-V-I-D-A-L-B-I-N. I am here to represent Longview Capital Corporation, a bank holding company that's located in Newman, Illinois, and has 13 branches in East Central Illinois. We started transmission data on August 24th, 2000. And in 2010, we received our FCC license to protect our right to the bandwidth for our data that we use today. The reason for our FCC license is for critical information to flow so that our tellers, loan officers, and upper management can have immediate and constant access to the information on the mainframe in Newman, Illinois. LCC has thousands of debit card users who we supply real-time balances that depend on constant updated information so they can maximize their potential. All of this data flows through our licensed FCC bandwidth. Any breach of our data by a crane, other construction equipment, or permanent wind turbine have serious consequences for the ongoing business of our bank. When the topic of interference by wind turbines or the construction process came to Longview Capital's attention, I began talking to Amy Kurtz, EDP's project manager, and visiting with the county board at least monthly at their meetings to give them updates of the progress between EDP and Longview Capital Corporation. I was hoping through this process to get our concerns resolved with the help of the county board through the permitting process. I have worked with Ms. Kurtz, and due to the time that it has taken EDP's attorneys, engineers, and third-party specialists to respond, the issue is not resolved. And furthermore, a couple of weeks ago, with a phone conversation with Chairman Munson, he would prefer EDP and Longview Capital Corporation come to an agreement outside the permitting process. I said I've been working with Amy, and in fact, we had a meeting within a day or two already scheduled because we've been talking. At that meeting, I suggested to Ms. Kurtz that we needed some kind of fine if they would enter the FCC license area that we have, and she said that their attorneys would look upon that probably very unfavorable. My point is, if they are suggesting, and they are, that they are not going to breach our FCC bandwidth, What makes the difference what the fine is? They'll never have to pay it. So if they're going to do what they're telling us to do, and they're being truthful, then they should have no problem with whatever the fine is. But if the fine is not enough, and I've talked to people who operate these cranes and construction companies, it's a capitalistic society. Am I done? Wow. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We have got another group that's going to look into whether they're going to bother our line with the turbines and the construction stuff. You know what, I was just kind of had notes and not really, but I did want to turn in these two letters that these are the two letters that I received at noon from EDP concerning our compact, and there's my response to that. So that gets everybody up.
Next speaker is Nathan House, please.
Good evening. My name is Nathan House, Nathan-House, like Dr. House. Our planet is an ever-evolving habitat that we are blessed to call home. I do not think we are always the best stewards of this land. We are led to believe the world is a big, big place, when in fact it is a very small, small world. Here we have in East Central Illinois the prospect of being on the cutting edge of the world's largest wind turbines. This is not something to be fearful of or think of as a blight on the landscape. I think they are futuristic in their design, and is that not what we want for our children, but to look forward to a better life for all of us. Most of us baby boomers and older ones in the audience have had our moment to shine. I'm looking forward to the movers and the shakers of tomorrow, and I want them to succeed. And yes, I know life does not stop at 60 or 70 or even 80 years of age. That is why, correctly or not correctly, I still think as an 18-year-old and not as a 62-year-old that I see when I look in the mirror. With age comes wisdom. The world I dreamed of in 1970 and the world we face today is a lot different than I envisioned. Please vote in favor of this project, for the future depends on it. Thank you.
Next speaker is Gary Booth, please.
Gary Luth, L-U-T-H, resident of rural Newman Township. The question before you is simply money versus traditional values of sight, sound, and land use, along with the concerns for health, safety, well-being, and property values of Douglas County residents close to the proposed industrial power plant. No doubt there will be a brief period of additional economic activity in the area while the construction project takes place. However, this will be very brief. According to a recent press release by EDP, they plan to be selling power to Walmart by 2019 from this project. Certainly the additional tax revenue will be real for a while, but I have not heard one taxing body volunteer that our taxes will decline after they receive the extra revenue. Extra expected dollars are often a temptation to spend unwisely for taxing bodies. Traditional values of sight, sound, and land use really need no additional explanation, as the proposed development will take some of the best, most productive farmland in the world and convert it for use as a noisy, ugly industrial power plant. The greater problem is what the industrial development will do to the health, safety, and comfort of the Douglas County residents living in or near the project. 75 households, according to the permit application. There are many issues of concern, but I will focus on shadow flicker, which isn't even mentioned in the Douglas County ordinance or the permit application. This is just what it sounds like: 3 blades, each 242 feet long on each tower, turning across the sun's path, casting shadows on and in homes in the area. If you don't believe me that it will be a problem, take a look at the EDP Good Neighbor contract, which offers to pay homeowners for the right to inflict shadow flicker on their home. The agreement even promises that EDP will try to mitigate the effects of shadow flicker on the homeowner by installing curtains or by planting trees. However, 60 of the 75 homeowners listed in the application have not signed with EDP and thus have no recourse because the Douglas County ordinance does not address shadow flicker. So it'll just be tough luck for those homeowners. If EDP thinks shadow flicker is important enough to pay homeowners for, why doesn't the Douglas County Board include protection for our residents like other counties do? If you grant this permit, you will be endangering the health, safety, and comfort of 75 home sites and many others in and near the project. EDP will build the thing and disappear, leaving the rest of us in the area to put up with the noisy, ugly, flickering, flashing eyesore. If you vote to approve the permit, and you can look me in the eye and tell me without a guilty conscience that you would have voted the same way if you lived near it, then I respect you. But if you can't tell me that, then you're going to hopefully lose sleep like I will due to flashing lights and noise. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jim Biddle, please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Excuse me. My name's Jim Biddle. Jimbiddle, farmer, landowner in the Newman area. Tonight I come to you without any overheads, any notes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm speaking from the heart. This is me. This is an economic opportunity, and I've talked about this many times. This is an economic opportunity for our vicinity. I watched our little town, our area, dry up and blow away. I don't know what more we can do. I don't see any other opportunity will ever appear again. I'm a person that does my own research. I do not use internet information, whatever. I have actually gone to a EDP wind farm, checked the facility out. I have also talked to individuals and have a good friend of mine that is a farmer in the Galesburg area that has a wind farm on his operation. Also, when we were in the process of signing the lease, part of the land that we own is involved in a trust. My wife called Chicago Trust to let them know about the situation. The individual from Chicago Trust said first thing was, whoa, 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 wind farms, let me check this out. He called back within a few days, he goes, sign anything they send you. They're a good one. I believe in the EDP and their project. I think it would be a great economic opportunity for our town. My home will sit on the south edge of the wind farm, and I will look to the north when I see from my front porch. I will not look at it as something ugly. I will look at it as economic opportunity for our community. Thank you.
Next speaker is Rick Dorsett.
Everybody, Rick Dorsett, R-I-C-K-D-O-R-S-E-T-T. Decommissioning, this may be the most important thing for financial well-being of Douglas County. The decommissioning plan was prepared by Hanson Engineering and they were retained by EDP. This plan has a total gross cost of $11,173,000 with a total salvage value of $6,327,000, $101,000 per terminal. They are claiming that the salvage will pay for 60% of the decommissioning. I think not. Most decommissioning, deconstruction jobs, and demolition jobs, you're lucky to get 30% return. So to get to the 30%, you would have $400,000 per turbine. Total gross cost of $19,200,000. You subtract the $6,327,000. Net cost $12,873,000. Turbine cost $268,187. Turbine salvage value would be approximately 30%. At the time of decommissioning, EDP or whoever owns Harvest Ridge, they will probably forfeit the $4,846,000 bond and let the county deal with decommissioning. This scenario has already happened around the world and in the United States. EDP is not a small company running on a shoestring budget. They are part of a billion-dollar industry operating on the backs of taxpayers in the form of subsidies and production tax credits. If EDP wants this project so bad, you should demand a substantially higher financial surety from them, preferably in cash in the bank. Here's something for you to sleep on. China-owned Three Gorges, known as CTG, is the largest shareholder of EDP. Twice they have submitted takeover bids. We may wake up some morning, months or years from now, and find out CTG owns EDP. I don't know about you, but the thought of China having anything to do with our electrical grid scares the hell out of me. Thank you.
Next speaker is Russ Brooks, please. Chuck Black, please.
My name is Chuck Black, B-L-A-C-K. I represent part of the workforce that will get a majority of this work on this project. And I just want to talk about the temporary jobs. They are part of our livelihoods, our careers. And when we make the money comes back to the county. So I support this project. I hope you support it and vote for it. Thank you.
Next speaker is Ed Luth, please.
Ed Luth, L-U-T-H. I don't think he might have. Maybe. I don't know. It seems like we discovered that there are several holes in this application. Before any of you vote on it, I would like to see that all of those questions from yesterday and today are addressed. I would also like to see a study done on the short-eared owl. IDNR did not believe to visit Douglas County, and after I sent them a picture of one on Highway 4, they are supposed to be getting it on the registry. The short ear is listed as endangered in Illinois, and if there's any chance it's nesting, that needs looked into. There were two recommendations by IDNR, and I'll read the first one. That the county consider imposing a requirement for the applicant to curtail turbine operations below wind speeds of 5 meters per second during the period from July 15th through October 15th to conserve endangered, threatened, and not listed bats. This measure will likely prevent the prohibited taking of endangered or threatened bats and reduce the mortality of non-listed bats by approximately 50%. That's a recommendation that you will need to impose. Is it in application? Do you know? I'm not sure. The mortality rate of bats is 7 times higher than that of birds when dealing with wind turbines. The major problem with bats is that wind turbines kill them in 2 ways: by striking them with the blades or by causing their lungs to burst. When bats approach a spinning turbine, the spinning blades cause a drop in atmospheric pressure. That pressure drop causes blood vessels in their lungs to explode, killing them. That same spinning causes the infrasound. So if there's any doubt that infrasound is not real, I suggest you look no further than how bats kill. Thank you.
Sharon Smith McWatt, please.
Hello, my name is Sharon Smith LaCuet, L-A-C-Q-U-E-T. I'm a small farm landowner in northeast Newman Township. My heirs and I are elated for renewable energy coming to our area. It is like manna from heaven for all of the benefits our community will get from the money EDP will be spending for schools, fire departments, and all the other taxing bodies. I personally will receive money from it also. My children, grandchildren, and future generations of our world will benefit too. The turbines will allow us to farm the land and not put it out of production, like the non-renewable fuels, coal, oil, etc. The $50 million plus paid by EDP over the 30-year use is a great help to all in Douglas County, not just a few. The word wind farm is a win-win project for all of Douglas County. Thank you.
Next speaker is Paul Freeburn.
My name is Paul Freeburn, P-A-U-L, F-R-E-E-B-A-I-R-N. When I was taught public speaking many years ago, the instruction was to start out with humor, tell a joke. Unfortunately, this proceeding has beaten me to the punch. I think the whole proceeding is a joke. A vote yes on Monday will deprive myself and many other residents in Newman and Murdoch Township of our constitutional rights to the uninterrupted enjoyment of our property without due process. Make no mistake, a 3-minute limit to present evidence on such items as real estate evaluation when there exists multiple studies confirming such laws by no means constitutes due process by any means of reasonableness. Nor in that 3-minute time frame am I allowed to question or challenge any evidence presented by the applicant. This also pales in the due process test. 3 minutes will not allow me to present evidence that Newman and Murdoch Township are among the last islands of dark skies in Illinois. A limit of 3 minutes is inadequate time frame to develop and present evidence of shadow flicker and how many days per year any resident living in the footprint will be subjected to shadow flicker. In fact, 3 minutes is insufficient even to introduce the credentials of the experts on shadow flicker. 3 minutes is inadequate to present evidence developed by Michigan State University on the technology to mitigate shadow flicker to 0, and it works well and is relatively inexpensive. A limit of 3 minutes is also inadequate to present that same university document that recommends upwards of 3,280 feet setbacks to preserve the rural lifestyle as opposed to the industrial lifestyle. Nor will 3 minutes allow me the opportunity to discuss with the author of Michigan State document how the wind industry threatened legal action to squash the recommendations of that document. A limit of 3 minutes is insufficient to present evidence of 3 townships in Douglas County who, after realizing that their county board was securely entrenched in the pocket of the applicant, took it upon themselves, as allowed by Illinois statute, to enact zoning for their own protection by a majority of between 60 and 85% of the voters. Nor will 3 minutes afford me the opportunity to present evidence that the applicant went to the Illinois legislature and proceeded to procure enough votes to change the Illinois statute. I wonder how this board will react when that same applicant goes to the Illinois legislature to change how wind turbines are taxed, and the $50 million in tax revenue that the applicant touts in advertising suddenly drops to nothing. I urge you to vote no.
Next speaker is Carrie Brewer, please.
I'm Terry Brewer from Homer, Illinois, spelled B-R-E-W-E-R. I'm an Ameren retiree from one of their previous subsidiaries in the electrical power industry, and back in the 60s, we had trouble sighting transmission lines because nobody wanted on their property, nobody wanted to look at them. But not one of you up here can say your light bill, your electric consumption is less than it was 5 years ago. Now, here's a chance to turn around and have electric production coming in here. It's not, if you believe in global warming, here's a chance to reduce your carbon footprint. And this is a chance that you can step and say you're leading the industry. All their tax bases here and all the small townships are leaving. We're reducing. I'm a township trustee in South Homer Township in Homer, and I know exactly what's going on with the reduction in the tax bases. Here you got a company coming in here going to give you a $50 million investment. I'm not going to say the taxes are going to go down, but it should mitigate the increases that we're going to be looking at. And my taxes are $57.70 an acre in Douglas Township right now, and in Champaign County I manage a trust, $46 to $48 an acre. So there's a chance right now to where we can have somebody come in here and help us out and pay some of these taxes to these schools, where we won't have to sit there and keep coughing up the differences. And I'm not saying that, like I said, the taxes are going to go down, but nobody ever likes to get rid of money, but maybe it'll help the situation as far as the raises that we have to look at. Thank you.
Next speaker is Greg Wagner, please.
Hello, my name is Greg Wagner, W-A-G-N-E-R. I live on County Road 2050 East in Newman. I don't like reading these things, but in looking at what we have going on here, it would be the best way to do it for me. In respect of 3 minutes, I've been graciously allotted to exercise my right to public comment as originated by our founding fathers, and to prevent running afoul of anyone's patience, and with the full knowledge of the expediency necessary to get that public comments box checked so the distribution of silver and gold may commence, I will be as brief as possible. 8 years ago, my wife Renee and I lived in Houston, Texas. My job required travel throughout the United States, including a plant here in Tuscola. I really liked coming here for various reasons, so when a suitable position opened up at the Tuscola plant, I applied for it and got it, and my wife and I decided to move here. When we arrived, we did not know where we wanted to live, so we set up our RV at Parkview Trailer Park and began our search. While I worked, Renee made a full-time job to find us our house of our dreams. We lived in Douglas County and all surrounding counties. The search took about 6 months, and then God blessed us with the home we've been looking for. Our house required an extensive amount of time, labor, and money. Our efforts cleaning, fixing, and purchasing equipment and such have been rewarded with a beautiful home with sunrises and sunsets that are near biblical. A wide variety of birds and animals share our home with us. The sounds of nature surrounds us day and night, and we truly have a home where the buffalo roam. That should tell a lot of you where I live. This is a perfect home for us, the home we would retire in and live the rest of our lives in. I did retire in 2016, and life was good. We did not suspect that in early 2018, our tranquility would be stolen from us. We found out the wind turbines were coming. I, like many of my neighbors, knew nothing about it. As time passed and we had to fight to get more information, we found there has been covert actions on this project for nearly 10 years. But the leaseholders and EDP were the only ones to know, apparently. I find it hard to believe that this process could go on for that long without county officials catching wind of it, and find it gravely concerning that if they did not communicate that to the constituents. Information on this project seemed to be cloaked in a veil of secrecy and only came to light in response to FOIA requests. It was not until April 2019 we found out the number and locations and the final heights of these behemoths. In my mind, I could not fathom a vertical height of 600 feet near my home. I tried to find something I was familiar with to compare that, and the best I could come up with were the smokestacks that define the skyline in Springfield, Illinois. They are only 300 feet. And the city of Springfield considers them an eyesore, and they're looking to get rid of them. At 600 feet, these gigantic monsters will dwarf the stacks.
Thank you.
There was one.
Next speaker is Jeff Williamson, please.
My name is Jeff Williamson, JEFFWILLIAMSON. And I'm here to read a letter. I'm representing my landlords. They live in Florida, and so she sent me a letter to read to you. It says, Douglas County Board, we're sending this letter for our tenant Jeff Williamson to read at your meeting regarding the wind farms. We are definitely in support of these farms being erected in that area. We feel as though they are an asset and will enrich the area. These farms will help with the environment, energy, and increase taxes for the education and schools in that area. We see nothing but positive outcomes as to the addition of these farms. Again, we are 100% in favor of the future of the wind farms. We look forward to the continued progress and future success that these farms can provide for Douglas County. Thank you for the opportunity to voice our opinions regarding this matter. Sincerely, Veris Dean and Maxine H. Turner. Thank you. Mine, it's a man, Veris, V-E-R-A-S-D-E-A-N, Veris Dean Turner.
Next speaker is Renee Wagner, please.
Hi, my name is Renee Wagner, R-E-N-E-E-W-A-G-N-E-R. Have you ever given any serious thought to the name Broadlands Wind LLC? Most of you probably know that Broadlands, Illinois, is not located in Douglas County, but can be found in Champaign County. So why would this industrial wind project be called Broadlands? Originally back in 2009 and 2010, the proposed industrial wind farm, now located only in Douglas County, was to be located in Champaign, Edgar, Vermilion, and Douglas County. So what happened? Why is the development only proposed to be located in Douglas County? Now, I would argue that EDP went looking for the area with the least restrictive siting requirements and found that in Douglas County. For example, there are 9 turbines proposed to be located within 600 feet of the Champaign County line, running from Edgar and Vermilion County lines to the west. I do not believe that the wind is that much better 600 feet into Douglas County than in Champaign County. It is clear that the proposed Broadlands project could not be built in Champaign County because their WEX siting ordinance is more protective of the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens than Douglas County. Champaign limits turbine height to 500 feet and setback from property lines of 1.5 times the tip height of the turbines. Douglas County has no height restriction and allows the turbines to be within 1 time the tip height of non-participants' structures. Also, the sound incursion for non-participants are unknown due to the turbines being at an unprecedented height. Even McLean County, which has numerous industrial wind energy complexes, limits tip height to 550 feet. The turbines in Douglas County will be 591 tip height, according to EDP. The decommission regulations are also much more stringent in Champaign County. Please vote no on the permit for the Broadlands Wind Complex and keep Douglas County from becoming the dumping ground for industrial wind projects that can't be sited in other counties.
Next speaker is John Peeler, please. John Peeler.
Good evening. My name is John Peeler, P-E-L-E-R, like an apple peeler. Okay. So I won't take a lot of your time. You got a lot of stuff to do this evening and throughout this whole project. But I've lived here about 11 years with my wife. We moved out from Champaign County, moved to Douglas County, rented a place from a farmer for about 7 years and bought our own place. We were attracted here because people are neighborly, people get along, and for the most part, everybody's always pushing in a positive direction. So I first heard about the wind farm from the notice in the paper, and I really don't know about the turbines. I'm an automotive guy, but I went there to see and hear. So I want you to keep in mind during that meeting, 3 minutes was well enough time to be represented. Nobody there on either side had any qualms about only spending 3 minutes. But all I heard was a bunch of fear-mongering and published opinions and things like that. So I've always been taught nothing solves argument quicker than facts. So I asked everybody, let's jump in our car and drive down to Royal and Ellsworth and talk to those folks where the wind farm is. And nobody wanted to do that. So I took it upon myself and I went there. And I spoke to a lot of folks that live right around there. I shouldn't say a lot of folks, about 6 people. I asked them if they were feeling any kind of illness. They said no. I asked them if they wanted to sell their property. They said no. I said, has anybody abandoned their property? They said no. I said, okay. So then we drove to Paxton, Illinois. My brother lives there at that wind farm, right near that wind farm. Been living there, raised his kids there so far. Nobody's walking around like zombies. Nobody's abandoned their house. And there's no issues there. We stopped at one guy's place. Had 2 turbines so close you could probably throw a rock at it, and he also had a Met tower there for a cell phone. So while we were standing there on his porch knocking on the door, you couldn't even hear the things running. I didn't know we could take visual aids, or I'd brought all the pictures on my phone, and I didn't have a GoFundMe page to help me hire lawyers or anything, so I'm pretty much just here on my own. So I know that sometimes decisions are hard to make, and they're not popular. But I've heard over and over war stories about things that could have happened in this county, And we didn't do it because fear-mongering and change, and we were worried about it. So, you know, I would hate to be in 10 years from now when this town in Newman is half of what it is again, because it can't do much more than what it is now, half in itself. And think that we could have saved a lot of these places around here and had a lot of economic growth, but we didn't do it because we were either afraid of it or we were scared of the political ramifications it might have because we make a decision that's not a popular one. So please, make an educated decision and take care of us here, and let's grow these towns around here. Thank you.
Next speaker is Edward Carlton.
My name is Ed Carlton, C-A-R-L-E-T-O-N. I'm a resident of Rural Grove, and I come here opposed to this wind project. I want to go back in a time like 1946. There was a county board, much like you sitting here tonight, listening to the pros and cons of a potential Bell and Zoller coal mine coming to rural Newman. Interesting enough, their pitch too was that resources of Douglas County at that time would be used to generate electricity. The greatest thing on earth. I'm sure those board members, just like you, were nodding their heads yes and up and down, thinking this is a great deal, a massive windfall for our county, our schools, our townships. At some point in the 1960s, I believe it was sold to Ziegler Coal Company. They soon expanded more, built a silo, extended a railroad, employed more people, and grew. Shortly after that point in time, there was government regulation changes in pollutions, and let's see where we're at here. Incentives went away, and the market for coal disappeared. Needless to say, the coal mine soon closed. That left many people in Douglas County wondering, what do we do now? They greatly depend on the revenue, and now they have nothing. Lives changed forever for people in Douglas County. We've all seen what's left of that coal mine. Many acres of precious farmland along Route 36, covered with fly ash piles, growing up in weeds and trees. Operational buildings closed. Just abandoned buildings and numerous sinkholes around Newman and Murdoch Township. Who's left with that problem? The people of Douglas County. Ziegler is gone. And let's not forget some of the other great hopes in Douglas County. Recon Tech is closed. The chemical plants west of Tuscola used to have parking lots full of cars, now they have a handful. Big Red Barn Antiques closed. The outlet mall struggling to stay open, and there's numerous rumors abound that don't sound good for Tuscola. Route 36 from Newman to Atwood shows remnants of many great proposals made to this county, and the one thing they all have in common is they've taken our precious resource, farmland, out of production forever. Farmland is and always will be our best resource in Douglas County. Let's not vote for a quick dollar for this large foreign company and let the future generations try to clean up this mess. Albert Einstein's famous quote, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result." Might this fall into that category? What makes anyone think the project will be different? What will be left when EDP is gone in Murdoch and Newman Township? Sinkholes and concrete pads. Thank you.
At this time, we'll take a 5-minute break.
My name is Judy Wells, W-E-L-L-S. My husband was born and raised in Fairland, and I've been there almost 55 years. I have 3 children that own homes there, and I have a grandson with a heart condition that doesn't need any more health problems. So, Citizens of the townships of Murdoch, Newman, and now Sargent Township has sought zoning for the simple fact that Douglas County officials refused a moratorium to revisit the county building code, Lex Amendment, written in 2009. This 2009 code amendment requires a very inadequate 1,000-foot setback for industrial wind turbines from the primary foundation. It provides no protection for property values and otherwise provides minimal at best protection for health and welfare of those within the radius of the turbines and leaves decommissioning to negotiation on an individual basis. Nothing in the township zoning ordinance prevents the safe, responsible building of industrial wind factories. And they are factories. Wind farm is a misnomer. The township ordinance sought to protect owners, lessees, and neighbors. County board should take note of these township ordinance. Even the 1,500 feet EDPR has used in a permit application is far short of the suggested safety circle these turbine manufacturers suggest. And the Douglas County Code Amendment in 2009 was written well before the 591-foot turbines were envisioned. For added reference, one should search the internet and find documented safety requirements for the V9 turbines at a height of only 476 feet. The suggested safe zone for the V9s in emergency is 1,640 feet with a working radius of 1,300 feet. The information is out there. Douglas County officials, if you had done your due diligence 9 months ago, the township citizens might have felt better represented and safer and a little more secure in your being allowed to vote for these. Thank you.
Next speaker is Houston Kirby, please.
Hello, my name's Houston Kirby, Houston, Kirby, Kirby. I'm a Douglas County resident. I'm also a business representative for the Carpenters Local 243 that represents the Douglas County area. I hope we see the local building trades put boots on the ground for this project. I'm for this project and the benefits that it will bring to the community in Douglas County. Thanks a lot.
Next speaker, please, Nancy Allen.
Nancy Allen, A-L-L-E-N. I live in Newman. When Champaign County, Missouri made it too difficult for Energista Portugal and China to build an industrial wind complex there, they set their sights on Douglas County's vulnerability because of an old, out-of-date building permit that was revised and made into somewhat of a zoning ordinance in 2009, but was never updated. A group of concerned citizens began doing much research looking at both the positive and the negative aspects of this industry. They have drawn the conclusion that there is much to be concerned about. A petition was signed with many signatures requesting the county board vote yes for a moratorium so that this whole matter could be discussed in depth. Only one board member voted yes, and there was no discussion before or after that vote. On the day of this vote, the board did not even know how many towers would be built, how big, or where they would be located. So, when and where did the board members have a discussion, a debate, regarding yes or no vote for a moratorium? We have attempted to share all of our findings with the county board, but they have rebuffed us or shown disinterest at every turn. There has been so much information shared: phone calls, emails, signed petitions, videos, photographs, personal writings, verified research documents regarding infrasound, low frequency noise, shadow flicker, strobing, setbacks, pulsation vibrations, blade noise, sleep deprivation, motion sickness, cardiac issues, anxiety, property devaluation, compaction, and ruination of precious farmland, killing of birds, bats, insects, day and night visual blight on horizons. But for all the work we have done doing the research for you, there is never a response or questions asked. On Tuesday, July 10, 2018, your constituents of Newman Township voted to create a zoning ordinance by an 86 to 57 majority, and later Murdoch Township did the same with an 80% majority. It has been said that the Newman Township vote was illegitimate and not well publicized, even though EDP or someone had purchased a half-page ad in the Newman Independent, and EDP employees went door to door passing out flyers, even confronting children on the street. The same people who voted for zoning protection also voted for you when the ballot with your name on it was placed in front of them. The current ordinance needs to be addressed bigger setbacks for health and safety of the non-participating landowners. Would you want a 600-foot industrial wind turbine with 3 242-foot blades spinning and a 490-foot diameter circle looming overhead close to your house, your children's house where your grandchildren play in the yard? Many of EDP lease signers do not even live in the area and will not be impacted in any way by the wind turbines, except in receiving whatever cash payment was promised them. They are in no way personally, emotionally invested in our community or our county. According to the safety standards set by the wind turbine manufacturers, the distance to stay back from a catastrophic incident such as blade failure is 1640. Why then are the families forced to live there? This will be your legacy.
Next speaker is Karen Smith, please.
I'm Karen Smith, K-A-R-E-N-S-M-I-T-H. I've taught for the public school systems for over 30 years. I'm the wife of a veteran and the mother of a veteran. I've taught Sunday school classes for 17 years and have served on many of our church committees. I'm a past president of the Newman Women's Club. I'm a past chairman of the Douglas County Farm Bureau Women's Committee. I've been married 50 years, over 50 years, to the same man. We are the third generation to live on our family farm, which is in the country northeast of Newman. I'm reviewing those facts to let you know I am committed to our community, and I really care about its future. When we were approached by the EDP representatives, we decided to talk to people who had actual experience with wind farms and with our adult children who will inherit our property. We do support the Harvest Ridge Wind Farm project. I believe the economic benefit to our school systems, townships, and communities is an opportunity for a measurable source of funding. I can't think of how the township could generate these kind of amounts of money in any other way. I feel the proposed project is a responsible step forward in clean, renewable energy. I appreciate the thoughtful review by Stanley Consultants concerning this application. I urge you to vote to approve the EDPR project, the Douglas County Wind Energy System application. Thank you.
Next speaker is Sarah Andreessen, please.
Hi, I'm Sarah Andreessen. Yesterday, as I sat at the board meeting and listened to your questions and listened to Rick Porter point out all the violations and shortcomings of EDP's application in regards to our WEX ordinance that you instated 10 years ago, I'm disgusted at this county board for even contemplating approving the requested permit. You made the rules, now's the time to enforce them. Stanley's report gave you a checklist, but it's your job to make sure the public health and safety is obtained, and currently you are not doing it. I normally try to remain respectful during my speech, but I've had enough, and as I see it, you're not respecting me and my rights. You are annoyed with the opposition, but clearly there are many issues that have not been addressed, and your response is to silence us and tell us to sit down and basically shut up. You're limiting me to 3 minutes to give my opinion on a matter that will affect both my life and soon be 4 children. We stand to lose approximately 50% on the value of our home. We are in the top 20% property taxes paid in Douglas County. We potentially lose over $130,000 on the low end and have serious health implications. And you're limiting me to 3 minutes to give my opinion? How dare you? You are an elected official and have duty to serve us, not EDP. It's time to pull up your big boy pants and act like a representative of the public to protect your citizens and not sit back and let this corporation come in and tell you what they're going to do here. That's not how this works. You've been given over 70 sources in the last year documenting that turbines can and do cause harm from negative health aspects by low frequency noise and infrasound, as well as the financial harm caused by turbines' proximity to dwellings and shadow flicker cast on those dwellings. The sound studies even show the noise levels exceed current requirements at multiple dwellings. I currently see you as a Chicago Democrat and current state legislator, an official that has their own agenda and is hiding behind their position, taking away rights from one individual to give to someone else. You're going to take the word of an EDP employee that tells you they have taken care of non-participating landowners' tiling issues and the ag impact mitigation, but only a fool would let the fox guard their chicken coop. You have an application that has turbines in the jurisdiction of a municipality, and somehow EDP didn't notice, but you're going to take their word that they've done due diligence in all other aspects? Even I'm not that ignorant, and you shouldn't be either. There are serious issues with decommissioning, and it's my generation and my kids that are going to have to pay for your greed. Last year, you hung a picture of Abraham Lincoln in your county boardroom, and I ask you to remember, we were founded as a republic, a representation of the people. Townships voted for zoning to protect property rights because they didn't feel you were protecting them. As a side note, more people showed up to vote for zoning in Murdoch than in the prior presidential election. So I'd say the majority did speak, and EDP was out buying votes in Newman, so the people that had an opinion clearly had their vote heard. There were over 414 opponent witness lists filed in regards to HB 2988, and only 202 proponents. Once again, the citizens don't want this and have spoken. Lincoln stated in the Gettysburg Address, it's a government of the people, by the people, for the people. Vote no to this permit and protect your citizens. You're clearly not prepared or equipped to make this life-altering decision for me or my family.
Thank you. Next speaker is Dale Ewing.
Name's Dale Ewing, E-W-I-N-G. I want to thank all of you because I know it's been a really tussle with all the back and forth. You gentlemen, women, ladies, your time is really appreciated. My thing about is the money and how the school system, our townships, all of these areas are struggling, trying to make ends meet. I remember an old statement my dad made. You know, when we had lean years, it was baling wire, bubble gum, and duct tape. And I think for probably over 10 years, I can take you to schools that are probably doing the same thing. The money that could be generated by this wind farm is maybe a shot in the arm, maybe a possibility. Take some of that duct tape off, go in and do something. One thing we didn't, now we're having to worry about security. Where's the money coming to try to make our schools more secure? These are things that I'm concerned about. Also, Villa Grove used to have a really, really nice building and trades program. We had a great instructor, had a couple of them. I have 4 sons that went through that program. It's not there anymore. Budget cuts. You used to go to Villa Grove, you could hire, we had tons of contractors, plenty of young men working in the carpentry business. Now you can't find hardly any. So the benefits of the income to help the school district, hoping that we had a bridge out in between Murdoch and Margot. I think it was down for 2 years, and we finally got it in last year. There's another ability that we could have more money and would have been able to get our road fixed.
farmers had to haul around grain from different areas in a different route because we couldn't use the same road, but it was closed. That's an additional cost to the farmer. I'm also concerned about, family farms. Not many kids get to be able to go out and start farming. I was one of them. I couldn't go out and farm. We didn't have enough and I didn't make enough. Maybe this could be a shot in somebody's arm if they receive a wind turbine, maybe a grandson or a brother or who knows could possibly start farming on their own. But anyway, I am definitely in favor of the wind farm and I appreciate your vote for it. My name. Thank you.
Next speaker is Eric Andreessen, please.
My name is Eric Andreessen, E-R-I-C-A-N-D-R-E-S-E-N. I stand in front of you this evening urging you to reject EDP's application. As a union electrician out of Local 601 in Champaign, the chair of the Murdoch Zoning Commission, and currently the chair of the Murdoch Zoning Board of Appeals, I understand the learning curve, have the knowledge needed to properly cite for this project of this magnitude. After watching the meeting yesterday, the false sense of security that the Stanley Company has instilled in you as a board is utterly disgusting in my opinion. The silence and the facial expressions that were being made during Mr. Porter's questions, along with the few answers that were given, not only shows the lack of knowledge, but just how outdated your WEX ordinance really is. I only see one reasonable move here. It is to deny the current application to allow a complete overhaul of your building code and WEX ordinance that is currently in place. You as a board have failed your county up to this point, and that is why the people took local control. Every T was crossed, and I dotted. Murdoch Township followed the letter of the law and was, and has, a true zoning ordinance. That was until big money and our state stripped us of our rights. Members of the board, this burden now rests in your laps. Take the time needed, do your due diligence, and protect the people of Douglas County. I once again ask that you please refuse EDP's permit due to lack of completion and the gross shortcomings of the current WEX ordinance. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dave McCrory.
Thank you, Board. My name is Dave McCrory, M-C-C-R-O-R-Y. Like many in here, I'm a lifelong resident of Douglas County. I live here in Tuscola. And having to follow Eric, I'm a 601 member myself, electrician. And I'm really in support of this. It's not only a good asset for our community, but I mean, my gosh, it's $50 million coming into the coffers of this county. I too was a fatality of the Douglas County coal mine out of Murdoch. I spent 8.5 years out there, so I know the ups and downs, and I've seen the ups and downs in this community. And I think this is a really good positive step for us, and a lot of our labor is going to benefit and put money back into this county as they're here. So I'm in favor of it. I thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Robert Albin, please.
My name is Robert Albin, A-L-B-I-N. I'm opposed to the Douglas County wind farm. I understand people wanting to have the income from it that is proposed by it. But we have, in the townships of Newman and Murdoch and Sargent Townships, where the Sargent Township may be where the wind farm may expand to, but we have taken votes, and it was all organized by the rule of law. Newman Township voted by 60% in favor of creating zoning. Murdoch Township voted by 71.5% to create zoning. All we did was create a zoning that was a fair zoning ordinances that increased the setbacks to provide better safety and protect the health of the people that live in the footprint. I hear a lot of people here that come that they want to get the money. They're in favor of the money, but they don't live in the footprint of where this is. You don't live in the footprint where this is. It's not going to affect your health. It's not going to affect any of your health. My wife has pancreatic cancer. She's going to die of this. She goes under chemotherapy 51 hours every other week. She asked me to tell you that. She does not want these in our neighborhood because we can't afford to have more health effects harming her health. And they want to put one right across the road from us. I've seen it on the map. I'm the Murdoch Township zoning administrator. Because of that, I'm kind of a target. I've heard the EDP employee go to Springfield, and I testified there at the same time. The EDP employee, they asked about how they found Douglas County. What did they look for? Not one time did she mention wind. She mentioned they found a favorable zoning ordinance. The favorable zoning ordinance is 10 years old. It's out of date. Give us greater protection. Increase your setbacks. Your setback's 1,000 feet. That's not enough. Would you allow your kids or grandkids to live within 1,000 feet of a 591-foot turtle? If you would, vote yes. If you wouldn't, you vote no. Thank you.
Next speaker is A.E. Luth.
Good evening. I'm Aaron Lewis from Newman, L-U-T-H. I've been kind of involved with the support side from the beginning with the wind farm. Met a lot of new friends through all of it, and took a risk by supporting this with friends and family. But I'm already seeing the benefits of it. There are people that are servicing the outhouses up there from Broadlands. So if that isn't on the lower end of benefit side of it, you know, I've been dispatched up there. All dirt on that job. Some of my local members are working up there with me. The crew I'm working with from the construction front, the contractor up there, we all get along. You know, it's pretty rare to have that go on. So I've seen what they're doing. I mean, I've been there every step of the way, from the beginning till now. I've met and gotten close to a lot of them, shared meals, you know, joked around with. I feel like if we don't do this, there will be no other industrial contractor want to come to Douglas County and do anything. So, and we see what the weather's doing now, you know. We're struggling to get corn in the ground, just worried about when we can do beans. It's just, if we don't do this, I'm afraid that the nation's going to look at us and go, why didn't you guys do it? Because we are. Everybody else is going to do it. They're going to find even more alternate ways to power, to light our homes, to, you know, move our cars around. So
I just really wish that we'd think about this and consider it highly to do this, because it's like a lot of people have said, I don't consider it a shot in the arm, but it's progress. It's, you know, people, like I said before, many years ago probably didn't want the railroad, but we rely on the railroad. We rely on farm ground. I'll bet you anything that people that lived here many, many years ago didn't want the ground filled up and working the farm ground. But we're going to come to rely on it, whether we decide to do it or whether somebody else decides to do it. It's going to be reliance, and that's all I really got to say. Thanks a lot. I appreciate you guys taking a lot of time and hearing both sides and the grief you've got to put up with. I've spoken with some of them, and you guys have got a lot of courage to even have to go through it. So thank you.
Next speaker is Daryl McCumber, please.
Hi, Daryl William McCumber, MCC, UMBER. I'm a grain farmer near Camargo. I own farmland in Murdoch Townships as well as a residence. That was my dad's great-great-grandfather that settled in the Camargo and Murdoch area, and it's provided a living for many of my family members and my relatives over the years. My mom's dad was Bruce Williams, who was Douglas County Sheriff from 1938 to 1942, but most notably known perhaps for his grocery store in Tuscola for 46 years. Many say through his generosity and non-collection of huge grocery bill debts, he allowed a great number of families to eat through some very lean times after the Depression. He and Grandma worked every day from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. to provide for the community. His reward for this was the interaction with his customers, his actual family, and his huge love as an outdoorsman. Many nights after working those 15-hour days, he would go raccoon hunting well into the wee hours, only to do it all again the very next day. Their only getaway, never vacationing, was Tuesday afternoons during the summer. They would head to a small farm of theirs in Indiana and fish until dark. That was his life and the life he cherished. My dad served 4.5 years during World War II, mostly in the South Pacific, including Peleliu. He risked his life for 4.5 years to fight for what he had left back home. My family and many like it have struggled their entire lives to provide their loved ones their own unadulterated piece of Douglas County. My wife and I currently have children and grandchildren living in the area. I feel they should have the same opportunity to enjoy this land as we have had, as did the generations before us. I only tell my story not because I'm special in any way, no more so than anyone else, but every farmstead you pass also has special people, a special set of circumstances, and a unique story to call their own. And I don't think any of us want our story to end as a footnote being gulped up in a huge industrial power plant providing energy for an unknown distant city with the major portion of the profits going to a foreign company. Douglas County would never be the same, ever. If we're going to forever sacrifice the beauty and sanctity of our homeland, shouldn't it be for the greater good of our own residents? EDPR and their outsiders have come into our county and fractured communities, divided churches, and even broken up nuclear families. They have made many representations, sued our township boards, lobbied our state legislature, all to force this project onto our community. I'm not against progress. I truly love new, innovative, efficient, and environmentally friendly ideas. I feel that is the path to a great future. But wind turbines are none of these things. And so finally, I guess the American people have invested millions of dollars only to have these years of toil lost and negated.
Thank you. Is there another presentation, video presentation that's going to occur?
Those were his photos from the last class.
Okay. Can we take that down?
I would love to.
Next speaker, please, Brian Moody.
Good evening. My name is Brian Moody, B-R-I-A-N-M-O-O-D-Y. I'm the Executive Director of Tuscola Chamber and Economic Development Incorporated. I apologize for the cold. I don't normally sound like this. For nearly 14 years, it's been my job to work with businesses, individuals, local and state governments, and many other entities and organizations to encourage community and economic development in the Tuscola area. We have partnered with many of the citizens, landowners, public officials, and others who are actually here in this hearing tonight as we've sought to encourage investment in our communities. We want to thank everyone involved in the permit process. We appreciate the time and effort the county has given to receiving input and comments from private citizens, business owners, and landowners. Much time and consideration has been made to evaluate this project and to complete the permitting process by public officials and representatives for the project. My organization has worked hard to make sure the necessary resources were in place to encourage new businesses and industries to invest in our county. While much of our organization's work is focused on projects within the Tuscola city limits, we've been involved with several projects out in the county and have worked to assist other communities in the county. We pursue these large industrial and commercial projects because we've seen the long-term value of large investments and what they bring to the county in new assets. Chemical manufacturing west of Tuscola has provided benefits to our community for over 60 years. Although these plants were originally designed for a 20 to 30-year life, they've continued to provide employment and economic opportunity for people in the county. And even today, with only a few hundred employees, these plants pay millions of dollars in salary and benefits to local citizens, not to mention taxes. To pursue large industrial projects, as we've done since 2005, Teddy has worked with landowners and farmers to secure agreements allowing us to promote their properties to developers and site selection consultants. These agreements have been possible because we work with landowners to identify their expectations, consider their opportunities, and make contact with potential developers. Having these partnerships has indeed allowed us to attract numerous developers. We've had some success in drawing interest from developers such as FutureGen, Great Point Energy, and most recently Cronus Fertilizers. Yet while we've gone so far as to have our site selected, to have actual site announcements, we've not had the ultimate success of seeing one of these projects built. This work to help us to understand the difficulties and complexities of these large industrial projects, and our work to advance projects such as these continues. The Harvest Ridge Wind Project's development has occurred without direct involvement by our organization. This wasn't our project, but we followed it because it's a $340 million investment in our county. We'll have a tremendous impact, just regardless of whatever new tax revenue is generated. We've sought developments like this in Tuscola and Douglas County in order to keep property taxes as low as possible for individuals and businesses alike. We supported the county's decision to develop a wind ordinance permit process back in 2008-2009. We recognize the importance of establishing an orderly process in our county for wind energy companies to evaluate the potential for development, and we thank you for your time and consideration.
Next speaker is Herbert Aiden, please.
I am Herbert Aiden, A-D-E-N. I reside on a farm which my wife and I own at 2330 East County Road, 1350 North in Newman Township, where the proposed Broadlands Wind Energy Complex wants to be built. Excuse me. We also live approximately 3/4 of a mile west of the newly constructed Ameren switchyard and substation, which will receive energy from this wind complex. This switchyard was built last fall through this spring, and as it was being built, our roads were damaged. It is very hard to meet or pass another vehicle as they have repaired the roads badly. I have not signed a lease with Broadlands Wind LLC, and I'm opposed to the building of this industrial wind complex. I have facts about those who will benefit from direct payments from the proposed industrial wind complex. 2 of 3 households listed as signing leases with Broadlands Wind LLC have addresses that are not within Douglas County. In other words, the projected economic activity promised from the direct payment to leaseholders will more than likely not become a reality, as most of the addresses the checks will go to are not located in Douglas County, many not even in Illinois. The permit application submitted by Broadlands Wind lists 75 home sites that were evaluated for sound level safety. A close scrutiny of these lists and names of those signing leases with Broadlands Wind LLC indicates that less than 15 of the occupants of those 75 home sites have signed an agreement with Broadlands and can expect to be paid for their close exposure to noise, shadow flicker, and blinking red lights. So 80% of the home sites listed by Broadlands as being in the footprint of an industrial energy complex will receive no payment for the inconvenience that they are subject to by Broadlands Wind. None of the 60 will have any recourse to protect themselves from shadow flicker, as Douglas County did not care enough about its citizens to put shadow flicker protection requirements in its ordinance. Thank you.
Next speaker is Joe Benich.
A lot of people struggle with that. My name is Joe Benich, B-E-N-I-A-C-H. I own Benich Construction Company here in Tuscola. We've been started here in 1994. We're a road construction company. I'm probably one of the only people here in Douglas County or in the room that has had a relationship with EDPR. We've been doing projects with them for 13 years now. One of the things that I will say, they started out as Horizon Wind Energy, then they were acquired by EDPR Renewables. They have always, with any of the people that we have worked with, we've worked on projects in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, they have always been truthful. They follow up, even, in my opinion, past what they need to do at times. I mean, they really do bend over backwards, and I'm more associated with the road commissioners, the roads, and things like that. But I can guarantee you the roads will be half again as good, if not twice as good, as they are before they start. They just, like I say, they do a great job. Also, the thing with the wind farm, everybody wants electricity. And so we only have a few choices that I know of. We have coal-fired power plants, we have nuclear plants, we have solar, and we have wind. It's been proven now. I don't know if it's as bad as they say, the greenhouse gas effect, but we know that it's a problem. And if we're going to have a planet left for our kids to live in, we have to think of some other types of renewable energy that do not create the greenhouse gases. And I think any of the people, this is a great project that's going to bring the tax dollars in for one thing for the schools and that, which need it the most. Any of the school districts around, I mean, I know Tuscola had to cut all their shop classes out and stuff, and that's mostly from lack of funding. And I hope that this is passed. I think it'll be great for Tuscola. Thank you.
Next speaker, please, Greg Luth.
Booth, LUTH. I'd like to make sure that each of you understands the size of these machines that you're being asked to approve for this wind farm. The turbines will be the largest land-based turbines in the United States to date. They will stand 591 foot tall at the tip height and have 3 rotor blades, each one being 242 feet long, creating a rotor diameter of 493 feet. Each blade will weigh 70 metric tons, capable of attaining speeds of up to 180 miles per hour. The manufacturer states that the wind cutout speed for the machine will be 50 miles per hour. So non-participants will be subjected to machines that are as tall as 2 football fields with 3 blades on the rotor that are each 80% of the length of the football field, and each blade weighing about what 2 loaded semi-trucks would weigh. These machines can be placed within 591 foot of a non-participating landowner's property line, or within 1,500 foot of a primary residence. How many of you would like to live by a machine with the weight of 6 semi-trucks spinning at up to 180 mile-an-hour tip speed? Very close to your house. I don't think any of you live over there. If you approve this permit, that is what you will be sentencing 60 households in Newman and Murdoch Townships to. And just another quick little thing, it's funny to me that no one here has really understood. If you look at the other counties around us, they have had turbines for years, but a lot of them have already rewrote their ordinances to lengthen the footage that these are close to homes. So, yeah, I think you should consider all that. So, thank you.
Next speaker is Charlie Anderson, please.
I'm Charlie Anderson, CHARLYANDERSON. I live just a bit north of Nippentuck in Sargent Township. I'm going to read a letter from Rick Reed's Fly On Farming, Matthew, Illinois, somewhat of an expert on flying around these turbines. Douglas County, and indeed all of central Illinois, has been blessed with some of the most productive soil in the world. Combined with favorable weather conditions, we are capable of sustaining the highest production results possible for the crops we raise. Any wind turbine development will reduce the number of acres planted within this footprint and negatively impact the potential for maximizing yield on the remaining acres. That is a qualified statement, not a speculation on my part. I am currently retired, but for 40 years I was an aerial applicator based out of the Coles County Memorial Airport. I have over 16,000 hours applying seed, fertilizers, and chemicals from the air, including a lot of acres in Douglas County. I have first-hand experience flying within the footprint of the wind turbine developments located near Bloomington, Illinois. A few of my additional qualifications include a degree from the University of Illinois in agricultural economics, past president of the National Agricultural Aviation Association, serving 35 years as executive director of the Illinois Agricultural Aviation Association, and an appointment by the U.S. EPA to Pesticide Users Advisory Council. Since wind turbines were first introduced into Illinois several years ago, I have been asked on numerous occasions to explain the impact on aerial applications within and adjacent to a wind development footprint. My conclusions are straightforward. It's dangerous to fly there. For both airplanes and helicopters, the rotating turbine blades create a strong ground level wind anomaly which adversely affects deposition and can cause drift outside target field. Maximum field coverage is also hampered by the Met towers, erected in conjunction with the turbine development, as well as transmission lines needed to move electricity out of the area. Landowners who have turbines on their property are rewarded financially, but their neighbors are paying the same price of reduced productivity without compensation. It is an industry standard for acres within and even adjacent to a wind turbine development to be subject to an increased application rate. That is not a penalty, but a reflection on decreased efficiency of an aircraft contending with the obstacles. As stated earlier, the decision may not be easy, since it is one that will affect generations to come. Contracts offered to landowners are financially attractive now, but those structures of concrete, steel, and fiberglass will be there for a long time.
Thank you.
You bet. Thank you.
Next speaker, please, Janet McCumber.
My name is Janet McCumber, MCC, UMBER. Until a little over a year ago, very few of the 20,000 residents of Douglas County were aware that an industrial wind complex was being considered for the eastern portion of the county. Still today, there are residents here who don't know about the project and its implications. The lack of transparency regarding EDP renewables and the industrial wind complex they wish to erect in Murdoch and Newman townships is deplorable at worst and irresponsible at best. As our elected county officials, the assumption is that you became board members because of a desire to serve your constituents and to act in their best interests. However, when your constituents have continually spoken out against this project, you have neglected to listen to them. In July and August of 2018, petitions were circulated in both Newman and Murdoch townships, calling for meetings to determine if the voters wish to have the township boards appoint zoning commissions to develop a comprehensive zoning plan for each township, thereby protecting the interests of all residents within the townships. The voters attending these meetings passed by a 60% margin in Newman Township and 80% in Murdoch Township the request to appoint zoning commissions. Consequently, both townships appointed 5-person zoning commissions, which developed comprehensive zoning plans that include substantially different requirements for the siting of wind energy conversion systems, or WECs, than what currently exists within the Douglas County building permit requirements. Their WECs ordinances gave much greater consideration to the health, safety, and welfare of residents impacted by the siting of any WECs. Murdoch Township took almost 30 days to hold hearings and to pass unanimously a new comprehensive zoning plan for Murdoch. Newman took a couple of months to hold hearings, amend, and then unanimously pass its comprehensive zoning ordinance. None of this would have been necessary had the board made the decision to review and revise our county's outdated WECs ordinance. Unfortunately, the residents near the proposed WECs project lost the protection offered by the township zoning ordinances when the EDP Renewables was able to convince the state legislature to void the 2 townships' legally established zoning ordinances dealing with turbine siting. The voters in Murdoch and Newman townships followed all the rules and clearly demonstrated that they wanted more protection from the proposed WECs than what was offered in the Douglas County Code. I hope you will take into consideration the clearly demonstrated will of the people who you serve, who are most impacted by the proposed industrial energy project, so benignly named the Harvest Wind Farm LLC, or Broadlands Wind Farm LLC, and vote no on granting the permit for a project that will permanently change our county's appearance, environment, and safety for its residents. Thank you.
Next speaker, please, Perry Albin.
My name is Perry Albin, PerryaLbin. And just for a moment, I'd like to follow up on something that the second attorney who spoke, Mr. Sparrow, said. He was talking about Commonwealth Edison's argument about the Byron nuclear plant, that it was personal property and therefore not subject to the real estate tax. If you would check the Watertown, New York local newspaper's website, you will find that within the last couple of years, EDP Renewables, right here, has filed a lawsuit against the local taxing body in New York, alleging that their wind turbines were personal property and not subject to the real property tax. I don't know how that was resolved. I don't know if it has been resolved.
That's not speculation. That's really something that's happening in another state with this very same company. I want to ask you a question, and I think it's a question, if you don't know the answer, you shouldn't vote on the permit. And the question is, do you know who you're dealing with? And I ask that question because the corporate structure of this company is very interesting. At the very top of the corporate structure, you have something called EDP Group. I could not find out on the internet who owns it or who it is, but EDP Group. EDP Group owns 82.6% of a Spanish corporation that does business in Portugal called EDP Renováveis, and I don't know if that's pronounced correctly or not, SA, which owns, as a subsidiary, EDP Renewables of North America, LLC, which is based in Houston, which owns, as a subsidiary, Broadlands Wind Farm, LLC, a Delaware limited liability company doing business in Illinois, which has an assumed name under which it operates of Horizon Wind Farms, Harvest Ridge Wind Farms, LLC. Why is the ownership important? The ownership is important because a limited liability company is responsible for its liabilities, damages that it may cause to individuals or property, penalties, fines, anything that it owes as a financial obligation only to the extent of its assets. Its parent company, EDP Renewables of North America, and its parent company are not responsible for Broadlands Wind Farms' financial obligations. If something happened that caused significant liability or obligations, they could sit on the sidelines. Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Neil Wood.
I'm Neil Wood, Nealwood. I'm representing my wife's family. They have a parcel of land within the footprint of this. It's regard to the aerial application. There are several thousand acres of non-participating landowners that have not been contacted about aerial application. If you look at the map that I received through FOIA in January, the white outnumbers the green by several parcels. So the participation level that they are telling you is not there. I have a letter from my aerial applicator that I've used for 20 years, and it's from Peterson Flying Company in Pontiac. Pontiac Flying LLC is based at Pontiac Municipal Airport in Pontiac and has been engaged in aerial application since July of '97. Over the past several years, we have had first-hand experience working in and around wind turbines and wind farm structures. Navigating and applying crop protection products safely and accurately is very challenging and endear in itself. Flying at speeds of 165 miles per hour between towers and support structures is very, very challenging and risky. It can be done. As a business owner and professional pilot, I do not like it. Massive tower structures, spinning blades, turbulence, and support structures and wire make my job increasingly more dangerous. In some instances, we have turned down our growers because of the dangerous conditions that the pilot and aircraft would be exposed to. It only takes one small miscalculation to cause an accident and possibly end someone's life. I've had people tell me it looks like there's plenty of room and to apply the fields within our footprint. They have never flown an aerial application aircraft, and thus, in my mind, are certainly not qualified to comment on the safety of said endeavor. If you rely on aerial application spraying to protect your livelihood, I would urge you to say no to wind farms. Under certain weather conditions, ground machines cannot access the field for spraying, and you could lose your only option. Scott Peterson. I think the big question is, you guys made these rules 10 years ago, and if you're not going to follow them, then what rules are you going to follow?
Next speaker, please, Andrew Alvin.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Alvin, A-N-D-R-E-W, A-L-B as in boy, I-N. I just want to say, first off, I'm probably the youngest person speaking tonight, because Sarah there's about 2 years older than me, so I'm kind of the seal pup here compared to most of my group. But I want to say my family has been in this area since 1840. That's 179 years. And this wind farm saying they're going to be here for 30 years, and it's kind of, as far as my family goes, kind of a small term window, but the damage that they're going to leave could be quite profound for my children, my children's children, and so on, because I plan to live here and my family to live here for the rest of our lives and the rest of our generations. Trust the common sense of a huge corporation is obviously not a very good idea, or the morality of that corporation. If you don't believe me, just ask the Enron people who bought into the stock there. I've heard some people talk about how, you know, the land is just not being used correctly. Well, then I don't understand how we're charging $300 cash rent and up for people to farm it. You know, obviously there's some value to this land, and quite frankly, the people that are sitting here worried about the money don't really feel probably the way they should, because, you know, the best gifts in life are free, and they're given from God's landscape. So that's all I have to say, and I just want to say thank you for your time.
Next speaker, please, Denise King.
My name's Denise King, K-I-N-G, and I live about 3.5 miles west of Maroa in Macon County. I am here to talk to you about not speculation, this could happen, that could happen. I'm here to tell you some of the facts of what actually does happen as we live in the Twin Forks project. My husband and I saved a long time. He's a 20-year Marine veteran, so that we could buy a piece of property in the country, build a nice house up there, peace and quiet, sit on our front porch, enjoy the sunset. Now we sit on our front porch and we see 14 turbines. We have to deal with shadow flicker, which, if you look up on this wall and you can see the fan blades passing in front of the light, that's similar to what shadow flicker is. So we don't sit on the front porch, and if we sit in the living room in the evening, be prepared for that to be passing across your face while you're reading, watching TV, whatever it is you're doing. Some people say, well, move. Why should I have to move within my own home so I don't have to be subject to shadow flicker in my face? Property values. We have had an appraisal done of our property since the turbines were put in. Our property value has decreased, and I have the appraisal here, by 25%. That's a chunk of change. In our case, it's over $80,000 of our net worth has gone down. We hope to stay in our home until they take us out in body bags, but we may have to realistically sell the house, move to a nursing home. That's 2 years of nursing home payments we won't have because our property value has decreased so much. I have problems sleeping. I've not been to a doctor, but I didn't have problems before. We go on vacation. I sleep great. We come home. I don't sleep. So that is one of the medical issues that can be caused by the turbines. To give you an example of how tall the turbines are, the Statue of Liberty stands 305 feet. These proposed turbines stand close to 600 feet, which is almost twice of what the Statue of Liberty is. So that puts it a little bit more realistic. Their proposal says it's going to generate roughly $50 million in tax income to your county. Macon County, we were told it would generate roughly $46 million, but if you then start to research that, there's a decrease in state funding that you will realize as a result. In our case, the projected loss of state income is $23 million. So the net effect of the 46 is that we'll get $23 million spread out over the 30 years. divided among all the different taxing bodies, you're not getting that much money. I could not find in their application what their state decrease would be. It's a question you need to ask. Thank you for allowing me to speak before you tonight.
Thank you. Next speaker, please, is Alan Hans.
Alan Hans, A-L-L-A-N-H-A-N-S. Wow, deja vu all over again. I live in this Macon County, in Northwest County, and I am part of the lawsuit fighting E.ON, the German developer there, as well as the Macon County. First of all, wind energy, these projects are not green. You will burn more coal to make the steel, to make the cement, all the rare earth metals from China than you will ever get out of the free wind that we have. There are 60 truckloads of concrete in each one of our turbines. The power factor on a wind turbine is in the 30% range. A nuclear plant is close to 98%. It's not efficient. The wind doesn't blow, or like the last couple of weeks, it blows too much and you have to shut them down. So they are not green. 130 turbines in Macon County, of them, less than 20 do the leaseholders actually reside by them. So all those leaseholders, they're getting the money, but they're living in Chicago or in Decatur or South Carolina or Florida. I live within a mile of 7 of these turbines. The closest one is 3,500 feet from the house, 3,200 feet from the property line. And your setback is 1,500 feet. These turbines are 591 feet. We're at just under 500. 591 feet is just 39 feet shy of the gateway arch. You could just barely fit it under the gateway arch. 3,500 feet, I hear what sounds like an airport when these things are going. It's not all the time. When it's really blowing, you can't distinguish the turbines from the high wind. But when it's calm, like Monday night and Tuesday night, all you can hear is the swoosh, swoosh, swoosh of the turbines. And it's not always the ones in the front yard. Sometimes it's the one in the back. The shadow flicker, I get that, not from that closest one, but from one that's 4,000 feet away. Your responsibility is not for the tax revenue, but for the safety and well-being of the citizens here.
Thank you. Next speaker is Christine Bruley.
Christine Crewley, CHRISTINE-KRULEY. I am completely out of the comfort zone, so I apologize. I'm a housewife with 2 kids, and I'm not normally in front of crowds like this. But I do thank you for your time and allow me to speak to you. I also live in Maroa in the middle of turbines. There are 150 in our footprint. In this footprint, the nearest one to me is about 2,000 feet. These turbines, we were told, wouldn't make any noise. And as my fellow team member, fellow neighbors say, it's like a jet engine when you sit on the porch. But it's not always like that. Sometimes when you sit there, if they're not turned on full power, it's very soft, and you wouldn't even know they're there. But they're enough to disturb us so that we don't sleep at night, and my 2 kids are up with me 24/7. And I have actually moved my children downstairs to a basement where there is no wall, or where the wall has no windows. And the reason I do that is in hopes that they'll sleep through the night, so that I can get sleep, so that I'm not monster mommy. My son has developed asthma since the turbines have gone in. I can't prove it's the turbines, but it just seems strange to me that before the turbines we didn't have breathing problems, and now we do. I had a cold that lasted 2 months, and I'm going to a specialist to try and figure out why. I'm not saying it's the turbines, I see you laughing, but it's just strange I didn't have these problems before the turbines went in. And again, you can take it or leave it. You can put this on your community and see what happens. I mean, from what I hear, I'm hearing the yes vote. And I mean, it's just also strange to me that when we're on vacation, we sleep better also, just like Denise said. But again, how can you say it's a turbine? It's hard to know until after they're in. The other things that we were told is that birds wouldn't be a problem, and I have neighbors who have taken pictures underneath turbines where there are hundreds of dead birds and bats. I shouldn't say 100, that's probably an overstatement because I over-exaggerate, maybe like 5. That cell phones wouldn't be affected, and last night I couldn't even use my cell phone. I never had a problem before the turbines were put in. I can't use them now. Roads would be better, and the bridge would be fixed on my road. It's been a year or so. I still don't have a bridge. So I encourage you, board, to vote no and get a better contract with the wind turbines.
Next speaker, please. Harry Vandervoort.
Not here.
Alan Rue.
Also not here.
Gary Brown.
Also not here.
Ted Harkey.
No deal? You want to skip me and go to the other speaker until he does messes with that?
Kalita Sterling. Last call, Kalita Sterling. Philip Harkey.
Yes, my name is Philip Hartke, Teotopolis, Illinois. Last name is Hartke. My son Ted's the one that's having a little mechanical trouble here. I came here from 60 miles away from Teotopolis, Illinois, because I think I'm going to give every one of you guys a job tonight. We've had a lot of speakers, and no one's given anyone a job tonight. I want each one of you guys, especially those 70 people that are in the the footprint of the wind turbine, go out and buy one of these. It records the sound level in your house. We've heard people talk about how they appreciate the sound of the lack of sound in their homes. Does any of you know what the decibel level is in your home at midnight, at 2 a.m., at 3 a.m.? Do any of you in this room know what the decibel level is in your house at 3 o'clock? Hold your hand up if you do. If you don't, how can you complain to the county board that the quietness in your house left because the wind turbines came? I'm telling you that we need to know what the wind turbine noise level is in our house. The wind turbine people will tell you that the refrigerator turns on and the decibel level in the house is going to be the same as a refrigerator. I think that's bunk. My son had to move out of a $250,000 home because of the wind turbine noise. He was an engineer that helped design the wind turbine locations, but when they started those wind turbines up, he was surprised to see how noisy it was in his house. My grandchildren were straight-A students at Armstrong School District. When the wind turbine started in, they could not sleep. They could not sleep because of infrasound. You won't hear the wind industry talk about infrasound because they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about how noisy it is. Did you ever drive up to a stop sign and the teenager pulls up next to you and he's got one of these woofers in the back seat and your windows in your car are shaking? That is an infrasound, but that's what you feel like in infrasound because it's a sound level that your ear can barely hear, but your chest knows it's there. I don't know how many times my grandchildren told me they woke up, the first thing they felt was the infrasound in their chest. Not what they were hearing, but in their chest. My son moved his family into his living room because it was too noisy in their bedrooms, but it didn't help much. They would wake up at 2 a.m. because they started the wind turbines and they could all hear that noise. How many of you here would be able to put your children on a bus to go to school when you knew they didn't get enough rest, when you knew that their health issues were going to be increased? I don't think very many of you want to do that. Of the 70 people that's in the wind turbine period, how many of those children are we going to send to the schools not knowing if they got enough rest to learn anything? We talked about the schools losing the carpentry projects and the VOAG students and everything else. What about just the plain learning? The Armstrong School District superintendent said that those students in the Armstrong School District saw an increase in absenteeism, and the teachers told the principal that they saw a decrease in the attendance level.
Thank you.
So believe me, infrastructure sound.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You ready? Good evening, my name is Ted Hartke, Hartke. I'm an engineer and a land surveyor. I own Hartke Engineering in Ogden, Illinois. I live in rural Sydney, Illinois. My former residence was in Fithian. That's a photo on the screen of my house with turbines behind it. The turbines are 497 feet tall, and the nearest one is 1,667 feet from behind my house. A couple speakers ahead of me talked about this is a great company and EDP can be trusted. February 13th, there's a WDWS radio station interview with Amy Kurt. I called in and I told about my concern with noise. And I asked my question and they quickly cut me off and Amy answered. She said there was a malfunction with the wind turbine causing excessive noise. And she said the wind company replaced parts and reduced the noise. That was a lie. And that was 100% untrue. Oh, I didn't get those instructions, I'm sorry. Up on your table, there's a noise chart right here. This noise chart shows when adverse health effects begin at 40 dBA. It also shows where widespread complaints begin at 33.5 dBA. The predicted noise level at my house was supposed to be 43 dBA. I was in favor of the wind project when it came to my community. I thought it was going to be really good. I did some work on the wind farm project. I really was looking forward to it. And when they turned on the turbines, we could no longer sleep in our house. The wind company turned off the turbines 51 nights between January and May of 2013. And in the fall of 2013, we moved all of our beds into our living room. And my house had no beds in any of the bedrooms. We lived like that for the rest of the year, and we moved out of our house on Christmas weekend 2013. I understand that this does not happen to every family, but I want the county board here to ask EDP Renewables to sign a document that says all of the children will be able to sleep in their bedrooms, in their homes, in the wind farm, even when our turbines are operating. If EDP doesn't show up with that kind of a letter and tells you guys that that's going to be guaranteed, you need to vote this down. That bedroom is the most private place of the house, and operation of something on a farm field a quarter mile away should not be entering into the bedrooms of young children and their parents. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Carl Smith, please.
Carl Smith, C-A-R-L-S-M-I-T-H. I actually live in Champaign County, but within sight of the footprint of this wind farm proposed. I am an advocate for renewable energy and believe in it. I think a lot of people are afraid of change or new things. I think things have to be done correctly, but I believe the best of my limited knowledge is that they are being done. You cannot wait until the 23rd hour to try to solve energy problems of a country and stuff and come up with solutions. Renewable energy, in my mind, is very much a route to go. I am a farmer. I would be farming. I do farm in Douglas County, would be farming around one of these towers. Would it propose an additional challenge in time? Yes. Do I think it is worth it? Yes. I still think it is worth to have that there, even though it would increase my efforts to farm that farm. As I stated, because I'm a farmer, I know up near Sydney, Illinois, there is a large solar project that will involve over 1,200 acres. The prime farm ground will be taken out of production. You take prime farm ground out of production, I'm a farmer. I'm out of, as a tenant, I'm out of work. The landowners may receive money. So renewable wind towers and stuff, you may have an obstacle to farm around, but at least you're still farming. So I very much would support a wind tower. I personally have solar on my farm. That's how I believe in it, but it's not a structure that's going to take up acres and acres of ground out of production. So, thank you for your time.
Next speaker is Chuck Rich.
Well, my name's Chuck Rich, C-H-U-C-K-R-I-C-H. I live in Mattoon, but I grew up in Douglas County in Arcola. I'm for the wind farm. It's going to create jobs. It's going to bring a lot of money into the schools because, as you know, these small towns, they're just going away to nothing. It's going to help the businesses thrive more and help the township also. So I just support the wind farm. Thanks.
Next speaker, please. Boris Rosas. Rob Thomas, please.
My name is Rob Thomas, R-O-B-B-T-H-O-M-A-S. Thanks for having us all here tonight and hearing both sides of this. One of the things that I think you're getting a good experience or exposure to is human nature. It's funny how through time human nature has affected the way we get to where we are now. Used to be the sun went around the earth. Galileo disproved that. Used to be if you sailed too far, you'd fall off the edge. Here we all are in America. What was it, 1904? The devil's work was at hand. Those horseless carriages will be the ruination of you all. Everybody got here in a car tonight, didn't you? Things change, time moves on. You guys are on the precipice of something great for this area. 30 years I traveled the country. I flew over it, crisscrossed it every which way. I drove through it, and I saw withering little communities. Remember these little towns around here all used to have grocery stores? They all had hardware stores. They had vibrant little businesses. Go into one of these towns now and try to find one. We all see what's coming. You can be the Galileo, you can be the Columbus, you can be the Ford for the people that live here. They didn't run from the challenge. They were ridiculed, they were persecuted, they were chastised, they tried to be stifled. Speak your mind, this community is divided, but we will come back together when this is over. Wish you Godspeed.
That concludes the public comment portion of this public hearing. My apologies. The applicant does get a 5-minute closing remark. My apologies.
Okay, I'll keep it really brief. I don't think you'll even need it, but I will just close by thanking you very much for taking the time tonight. It's been a long night, and it's been a long many, many months of consideration and hearing from folks at all of your board meetings about this project, and I think we're all looking forward to taking the next step here. You've heard a lot of information, and what I can say is that, we've been working on this project for many years with landowners, performing studies, and doing all of the requirements that are listed in your wind energy ordinance. And you made a good decision many, many months ago by hiring an outside consultant that is an expert in wind energy and is an expert in this stuff to actually review all of the documents that we've been providing and to do that detailed analysis. It has been a strenuous 7 months of back and forth with those consultants. One of the most detailed and rigorous permitting process that our company has had to go through, and that has resulted in a complete permit application. There were a number of questions that were brought up tonight about various aspects of the permit. All of those have been answered in detailed documents in that permit application, and we would be happy to provide those detailed responses and information to you. I will conclude by just saying that this is a really incredible opportunity for this county and for these areas. It's a $300 million investment. Our 5 wind farms in Illinois are already producing major benefits to these communities. We've already paid more than $60 million in taxes to those communities since those projects have been in operation. And we really look forward to being a long-term community partner, both in Newman and Murdoch Townships, as well as in Douglas County, for decades to come as this
Harvest Ridge Wind Farm will be producing clean energy for decades to come. So thank you for your time. I think that will call it a wrap from one infrastructure project on to the next. Thank you for your time and thank you for your consideration. We encourage you to approve the wax permit application.
A number of written comments were also submitted to the county, and those have been received and will be provided, have been provided to the county board.
Is there any new business that needs to come before the board? Is there any questions from the press? Very well. Then I will accept Mrs. Appleby's motion to adjourn. Is there a second? By Mr. Hedinger. All in favor, say